Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back to an era where central heating was a roaring fire in the middle of a dirt floor. And delivery food meant hoping your neighbors didn't steal your chickens. We're going to dive deep into the absolutely miserable life of a medieval peasant. Imagine this. You're born into a world where survival isn't just a challenge, it's an Olympic sport. And every single day feels like you're running a marathon uphill barefoot in the mud. You probably wouldn't even make it past Tuesday, let's be real. It's a reality check on epic proportions, a stark contrast to our cozy Wi-Fi enabled lives. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, if you're listening from somewhere exotic, like say a warm beach in Bali, or maybe just your bedroom in Ohio, let me know your location and the time in the comments below. It's always wild to think about where these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't choose this life. It chooses you often with the unceremonious squawk of a midwife and the cold, damp air of a hut that barely keeps out the elements. You are born, and almost immediately you are a part of the earth, destined to work it, live from it, and eventually return to it. There's no hospital here, no doctor with gleaming instruments, just a few women with calloused hands and a lifetime of inherited wisdom, hoping to guide you safely into a world that is anything but safe. The first breath you take is likely filled with the scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and unwashed bodies, a potent cocktail that will define much of your existence. Your cries mingle with the bleating of nearby livestock and the distant muffled sounds of a village perpetually toiling. From the moment you're a tiny bundle swaddled in rough-spun cloth, your future is largely predetermined. You are born into a family, yes, but more importantly, you are born onto the land of a lord, a powerful figure who owns everything you see and everything you will ever touch. Your parents and their parents before them were bound to this land, and now so are you. This isn't just a metaphor, it's a legal and social reality. You are in essence an extension of the land itself, a resource to be managed, taxed, and utilized for the Lord's benefit. You are not a free individual in the modern sense. Your movements, your labor, and even your marriage are subject to the Lord's will. It's a stark contrast to the freedom we cherish today, isn't it? Imagine needing permission to marry the person you love simply because they live in a different village or worse, belong to a different lord. Your early years are a blur of basic survival. There are no toys in the way we understand them. No brightly colored plastic, no screens. Your entertainment is the natural world around you. A stick becomes a sword, a patch of mud, a grand castle. You learn to walk on uneven ground, your small feet toughening quickly against stones and thistles. Your diet is simple, almost monotonous grains, mostly barley or rye made into coarse bread or watery pottage. Meat is a rare luxury, perhaps a scraggly chicken on a feast day, or a bit of scavenged rabbit if you're lucky. Malnutrition isn't a medical term. It's a daily reality slowly shaping your bones and stunting your growth. You're probably smaller than your modern counterparts, your body constantly fighting to extract every last nutrient from meager fare. As soon as you can walk, you are put to work. There's no childhood as we know it, no idyllic years of play and schooling. From a very young age, perhaps 5 or 6, your small hands are already contributing to the household survival. You might be tasked with gathering firewood, tending to the chickens, or chasing birds away from the newly sown fields. Every member of the family is a vital cog in the grinding machine of subsistence. There's no room for idleness. Idleness means hunger, and hunger means death. It's a brutal logic, but one that permeates every aspect of your existence. You watch your parents toil from dawn till dusk, their bodies bent and gnarled by years of relentless labor, and you instinctively understand that this is your future too. There's no escaping it, no grand career ambitions, no dreams of becoming an astronaut or a TikTok influencer. Your destiny is etched in the furrows of the field. Education for you is entirely practical. You don't learn to read or write. Those skills are reserved for the clergy and a tiny fraction of the nobility. Instead, you learn the rhythms of the seasons, the subtle language of the weather, and the intricate knowledge of farming that has been passed down through generations. You learn which plants are edible and which are poisonous, how to mend a broken tool, and how to coax a meager harvest from stubborn soil. This knowledge isn't abstract, it's the very fabric of your survival. You learn by doing, by watching, by mimicking. Your classroom is the open field, your teachers, your weary parents, and your exams are the unforgiving demands of nature. Sanitation is a concept that simply doesn't exist in your world. Your village, your home, your very body are teeming with life, much of it microscopic and unwelcome. There's no running water, no soap as we know it, and certainly no understanding of germs. Waste is simply thrown out often into the street or a nearby ditch, attracting flies and vermin. The air itself carries the pungent odors of human and animal waste, stale food, and unwashed bodies. You become accustomed to it, of course, it's simply the way things are. But this lack of hygiene has dire consequences. Minor cuts can quickly become infected, a simple cold can turn into pneumonia, and diseases spread like wildfire through closely packed communities with no concept of contagion. It's a wonder anyone survived at all, frankly. Speaking of disease, your immune system is constantly under siege. You're exposed to a dizzying array of pathogens from birth, and while some exposure builds resilience, constant onslaught weakens even the strongest constitution. Child mortality rates are staggeringly high. Many of your siblings, if you have them, will not live to see adulthood. It's a heartbreaking reality, but one that is accepted with a stoic resignation. Grief is a constant companion, but there's little time for protracted mourning. The living must continue to toil. There are no doctors, no medicines beyond herbal remedies, and folk cures passed down through generations, many of which are more superstition than science. A fever, a cough, a persistent ache, any of these could be a death sentence. Your spiritual life, however, is rich and deeply ingrained. The church is the dominant institution providing not just spiritual guidance, but also a sense of community and order in a chaotic world. You attend Mass regularly, listening to sermons in Latin, a language you don't understand, but absorbing the moral teachings through imagery and repetition. Your world is populated by saints and devils, miracles and damnation. The fear of God is real, but so is the comfort of faith. You believe that your suffering in this life will be rewarded in the next, a powerful motivator to endure the hardships of your earthly existence. Historians still debate whether the pervasive religiosity of the common folk was a genuine expression of piety or a coping mechanism for an otherwise bleak existence. Perhaps it was a bit of both. The local priest, often barely more educated than yourself, serves as a vital link to the divine, offering solace, absolution, and a glimmer of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. Despite the relentless toil and constant threats, there are moments of simple pleasure. The warmth of a crackling fire on a cold night, the shared laughter over a course meal, the fleeting joy of a village festival after a successful harvest. These aren't grand, luxurious pleasures, but small, precious moments of human connection and respite from the endless struggle. You cherish these moments, for they are the brief flashes of light in an otherwise long, arduous journey. You learn to find contentment in the smallest things. The taste of a fresh berry, the sight of a clear sky, the simple act of breathing in the morning air. Because in this life, every breath is a victory. Your relationship with the natural world is intimate and immediate. You understand the signs of rain in the clouds, the feel of fertile soil between your fingers, the whisper of the wind through the grain. You are not separate from nature. You are a part of it, subject to its whims and reliant on its bounty. The cycle of seasons dictates your life, from the planting in spring to the harvest in autumn and the long, hungry winter that always follows. You live and breathe with the land, your life inextricably linked to its rhythms. There's a certain beauty in this connection, even amidst the hardship, a primal understanding of the world that modern life has largely forgotten. You know where your food comes from. You know the effort it takes to produce it, and you appreciate every mouthful in a way that someone who has never tilled the soil can never truly understand. This relentless struggle, this grinding existence, shapes not just your body, but your very spirit. You develop an incredible resilience, a deep-seated stoicism that allows you to face adversity with a quiet strength. There's no room for self-pity or existential angst. Those are luxuries you can't afford. Your focus is always on the present, on the next task, on simply making it through another day. You are a survivor molded by hardship, and in that there is a certain dignity. You are a testament to the enduring human spirit, capable of finding meaning and purpose, even in the most challenging of circumstances. You are a medieval peasant, and your life, though often miserable, is a powerful story of endurance. You wake with the sun, or often even before it. There's no snooze button on your life. The chill of the pre-dawn air seeps through the thin walls of your wattle and daub hut, stirring you from a fitful sleep on a straw-filled mattress if you're lucky enough to have one. More often, it's just a pile of straw on the dirt floor shared with your family, and perhaps a few unwelcome fleas. Your body aches even before you begin the day's labor, a constant companion of strained muscles and bone-deep fatigue. There's no hot shower to wake you up, no freshly brewed coffee. You splash cold water from a communal well onto your face, and that's about the extent of your morning routine. Your first thought every single morning is about the fields. The arable land is your lifeblood, the source of every meager meal, every scrap of clothing. You are a serf bound to this land and to your lord, and your primary duty is to work the soil. You grab your tools. A heavy wooden plow, perhaps, if your family is fortunate enough to own, one or more, likely just a spade and a hoe. These aren't ergonomic, lightweight tools designed for comfort. They are brute instruments demanding every ounce of your strength. You might joke about needing a pre-workout supplement, but your reality is simply the empty gnawing in your stomach. The walk to the fields is often long, your bare feet or worn leather shoes sinking into the mud or crunching over frozen ground, depending on the season. As you approach the vast expanse of land, you see your neighbors, other peasants already at work, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun. There's a quiet camaraderie among you, a shared understanding of the unending struggle. You might exchange a few gruff greetings, a nod of acknowledgement, but there's little time for idle chatter. Every minute counts. Throughout much of the medieval period, the open field system was common. This meant that the lord's land was divided into large, unfenced fields, which were then further divided into long, narrow strips. Your family wouldn't own a single contiguous plot. Instead, you'd have several scattered strips across different fields. This system, though seemingly inefficient, allowed for a fairer distribution of both good and bad quality land, and also ensured that everyone participated in the common agricultural practices of the village. It also meant a lot of walking back and forth between your various plots, adding to the day's already exhausting burden. Your primary crop is grain: wheat, barley, rye, or oats. This is the foundation of your diet, providing the bulk of your calories. The cycle of the year revolves entirely around these crops. In autumn, after the harvest, you might begin plowing the fields, breaking up the tough soil to prepare it for the next planting. This is back-breaking work, especially if you're relying solely on human power. If your village has oxen or even a horse, it makes the task slightly less arduous, but even then, steering a heavy, cumbersome plow through sticky earth is a full-body workout that never seems to end. You grip the wooden handles, feeling the vibrations travel up your arms, your muscles screaming in protest with every step. Winter is a time of waiting, of mending tools, and of hoping your meager stores of food last until spring. But as soon as the ground begins to thaw, it's time for sowing. You walk along your strip, scattering seeds by hand, a prayer on your lips with every handful. Too much wind, too much rain, too little sun. Any of these could doom your efforts. You learn to read the signs of the weather with an almost supernatural intuition, your livelihood depending on it. You can almost feel the whispers of the earth beneath your bare feet, hoping it will be generous this year. Then comes the long wait, punctuated by constant vigilance. You spend hours weeding your fields, stooping low to pull up stubborn plants that compete with your precious grain. This is a monotonous, repetitive task that strains your back and neck, but it's essential. Every weed left unchecked steals vital nutrients from your crops. You might even have to stand guard for hours, yelling and waving your arms to scare away flocks of hungry birds or deer that see your fields as an easy meal. Imagine being a human scarecrow day in and day out. It's less glamorous than it sounds. Summer brings the hope of the harvest, the most critical time of the year. This is a communal effort often involving the entire village. Men, women, and even children work side by side, swinging sickles and scythes, their movements synchronized by years of practice. The sun beats down relentlessly, sweat stings your eyes, and chaff irritates your skin, but you push through the pain. The rhythmic swish of the scythe, the rustle of falling stalks, the communal hum of voices. These are the sounds of survival. You cut the stalks, gather them into sheaves, and then bind them into larger shocks to dry. Once the grain is dry, it's time for threshing. This usually takes place on a hard, flat surface, often a communal threshing floor. You use flails, long poles with a shorter, heavier piece attached by a hinge, to beat the grain, separating the edible kernels from the inedible husks. Chaff. This is incredibly dusty work, and the air is thick with airborne particles, making your lungs ache and your eyes water. Your back screams in protest. Your arms feel like lead, but you keep swinging, knowing that every kernel represents another meal, another day of life. After threshing, the grain needs to be winnowed. This involves tossing the threshed grain into the air, allowing the wind to blow away the lighter chaff, leaving the heavier, more valuable kernels to fall back down. This is an ancient technique, simple but effective, and entirely dependent on a good, steady breeze. If there's no wind, you wait. If the wind is too strong, you risk losing precious grain. It's another example of your complete dependence on the unpredictable forces of nature. Finally, the grain must be ground into flour. This often requires taking your hard-won harvest to the Lord's mill. This isn't a free service. You must pay the Lord a fee, often a significant portion of your grain, for the privilege of using his mill. This is known as banality, a feudal right that ensured the Lord profited from every aspect of his serfs' lives. It's frustrating, of course, to give away a portion of what you've toiled so hard to produce, but you have no choice. The Lord's mill is usually the only one for miles, and grinding grain by hand is an impossible task for a household. Beyond the major grain crops, you also tend to a small kitchen garden near your hut. Here, you might grow a few vegetables like onions, cabbage, peas, or beans, and perhaps some herbs for flavor and medicinal purposes. This garden is vital, providing a fresh supplement to your monotonous grain-based diet, especially in the summer months. It's your personal patch of green, a small oasis of variety in a world of uniformity. You tend it with care, recognizing its immense value. Your life is not just about growing food, it's also about raising animals. You might have a few chickens for eggs and occasional meet a pig or two that scavenges for food, and perhaps a cow for milk and cheese, though a cow is a significant asset that few peasants could afford. These animals are precious, representing both food and a form of wealth. You know each animal by its habits, their health is crucial as your own. Their waste provides valuable fertilizer for your fields, closing the loop of your sustainable if demanding agricultural system. One common historical truth often overlooked is that medieval peasants, while bound to the land, weren't necessarily slaves in the classical sense. They had certain customary rights and protections, however meager. They couldn't be sold away from the land, for example, and their obligations to the Lord were generally fixed. They were certainly exploited, but their existence was legally distinct from chattel slavery. An obscure detail often missed is the sheer diversity of tasks performed by a single peasant family. You weren't just a farmer, you were a builder, a weaver, a carpenter, a baker, a brewer, and a veterinarian, all rolled into one. Your skills were incredibly broad, learned through necessity and passed down through generations. The work is relentless, driven by the seasons and the constant threat of hunger. There are no weekends, no holidays beyond the occasional church festival. Your body is a tool used and abused, pushing beyond its limits day after day. You are constantly tired, your bones aching, your hands calloused and cracked. Your life expectancy is tragically short, your body wearing out long before its time. But in this unyielding cycle of toil, there is a profound connection to the earth, a deep understanding of where sustenance truly comes from. You are the backbone of society, the silent engine that feeds the lords, the knights, and the clergy. Without your ceaseless labor, the entire feudal system would collapse. You might often hear the phrase, "a peasant's work is never done." And in your reality, it's not just a saying, it's a literal truth. Even after the sun sets, there are still chores. Mending tools by the dim light of a fire, preparing the next day's meager meal, spinning wool, or telling stories to your children to pass down the oral traditions of your village. Your life is a testament to human resilience, to the sheer grit required to survive when every element seems to conspire against you. You dream of food, of warmth of a day when your back doesn't ache so much. But tomorrow the sun will rise again and you will return to the fields. For the earth demands your toil and your family demands your survival. It's a simple, brutal contract etched in the soil itself. Historians still debate the extent to which the open field system limited individual innovation or encouraged communal cooperation. Was it a hindrance or a hidden strength? You just knew it was the way things were and it was the way you would live and die. Your stomach is a constant low thrum, a dull ache that becomes a familiar part of your existence. For you, the medieval peasant, every meal is a victory, a temporary reprieve from the gnawing hunger that defines your life. There are no supermarkets brimming with endless choices, no refrigerators humming with leftovers. Your diet is dictated by the seasons, the success of your harvest, and the unforgiving reality of limited resources. It's a far cry from debating whether to order pizza or tacos tonight, isn't it? The cornerstone of your diet is without a doubt grain. Mostly this means bread. Not the fluffy artisanal sourdoughs you see today, but a dense, dark, and often coarse loaf made from rye barley or a mix of whatever grains your small plot yields. This bread is your fuel, your primary source of calories. It's often baked in communal ovens, a large domed structure, usually owned by the Lord, for which you'd again pay a fee, perhaps a portion of your dough. The smell of baking bread, though common, is always a comforting aroma, a promise of sustenance. You eat it with every meal, tearing off chunks with your calloused hands, sometimes dipping it into a watery stew or a bit of sour milk if you're lucky. Accompanying your bread and often forming the bulk of your other meals is pottage. This is essentially a thick, slow-cooked stew, a concoction of whatever vegetables are available. Peas, beans, cabbage, onions, leeks, simmered with grain and water. Meat is a rare addition, a true luxury. The pottage is prepared in a single large pot over the open fire in your hut, simmering for hours, often with new ingredients added throughout the day. It's a simple, nourishing dish designed to make the most of limited ingredients and stretch them as far as possible. You eat it with a wooden spoon huddled around the fire, sharing from a common bowl or individual wooden trenchers. There's no elaborate cutlery here, just the essentials. Vegetables from your small garden are crucial, especially during the warmer months. Cabbage is a staple, hardy and versatile, growing well, even in less than ideal conditions. Peas and beans provide much-needed protein. You might also gather wild plants, nettles, dandelions, wild garlic, to supplement your diet knowledge passed down through generations about which plants are safe and edible. This foraging adds variety and crucial vitamins, a testament to your resourcefulness. Meat is a rare indulgence. If you're lucky, your family might have a few chickens, providing an occasional egg or a very small, tough bird for a special feast day. Pigs are valuable, providing lard for cooking and meat, but they are often slaughtered in the autumn to ensure enough food for winter, with the meat salted or smoked to preserve it. You might occasionally hunt small game like rabbits or birds, but hunting on the Lord's land is often strictly forbidden and punishable. A peasant caught poaching might face severe penalties, even death, for daring to infringe upon the Lord's exclusive rights. It's a stark reminder of the Lord's power and your subordinate position. Imagine going to jail just for trying to feed your family with a wild rabbit. That's your reality. Dairy products like milk and cheese are more common if your family owns a cow or a goat. Milk isn't usually consumed fresh. It's quickly turned into cheese or curdled milk as refrigeration doesn't exist. These provide important protein and fat-valuable additions to a sparse diet. Whey, the liquid left over from cheese making, might also be consumed or used in pottage. Fish is an important source of protein, especially on fasting days prescribed by the church when meat is forbidden. If you live near a river, lake, or the coast, fishing might be a part of your diet. However, fishing rights are also often controlled by the Lord, meaning you might have to pay for the privilege or only fish in designated areas. Salted fish is also traded, but often too expensive for the average peasant. For drinks, ale is a common staple even for children. Water sources are often contaminated, so fermented drinks like ale are safer alternatives. It's low in alcohol, more like a thick, nutritious gruel than a modern beer, providing calories and hydration. You or your family might brew it at home using your own grain. Milk and whey are also consumed. Clean drinking water as we know it is a luxury beyond your comprehension. The concept of a balanced diet is alien to you. Your diet is driven by survival, by caloric intake, and by whatever you can produce or legally obtain. There are periods of relative abundance, especially immediately after harvest, when fresh produce is plentiful. But these are followed by the long, lean months of winter when food stores dwindle, and you rely heavily on dried grains, salted meats, and preserved vegetables. This is the time of the hungry gap, a particularly difficult period in late spring when last year's stores are running low and the new crops aren't yet ready for harvest. Many peasants experience severe hunger during this time, often relying on roots nuts or whatever they can forage from the diminishing natural larder. Famine is not a distant concept. It's a terrifying specter that looms constantly over your life. A bad harvest due to prolonged drought, excessive rain, or a widespread pest infestation can easily tip your village from scarcity to outright starvation. When famine strikes, people resort to desperate measures, eating tree bark roots, even the seeds meant for next year's planting. Disease often follows famine as weakened bodies succumb easily to illness. These periods are etched into the collective memory of your village, grim reminders of your absolute vulnerability. One might say that medieval peasants were the original flexitarians, but not by choice, rather by necessity. Your understanding of food preservation is entirely practical. You dry grains and some vegetables, salt, or smoke meat and fish and ferment drinks. There's no refrigeration, no canning. This limits what you can store and for how long. The ingenuity involved in surviving without modern preservation methods is remarkable, a testament to centuries of accumulated knowledge about sustainable living. You learn these techniques from your parents and grandparents, essential skills for survival in a world where food security is a daily struggle. A common historical belief is that medieval peasants ate very little meat. While generally true, an interesting detail is the occasional feasting that would occur on specific religious holidays or after a successful harvest. On these rare occasions, the Lord might provide some extra meat, or the villagers might pool resources to slaughter an animal. These feasts, though infrequent, were vital for communal bonding and provided a much-needed caloric boost. They were bursts of joy and temporary relief from the relentless grind. Think of it as the ultimate cheat day, but a cheat day that might happen once or twice a year if you're lucky. Your relationship with food is deeply personal and profound. You understand the effort and sacrifice that goes into every single bite. There's no waste. Every scrap is precious. You eat slowly, savoring the flavors, however simple. You are grateful for every meal, for every day you are fed. This ingrained appreciation for sustenance born from constant scarcity is a stark contrast to the casual abundance of modern times. You live on the edge, always one bad harvest away from disaster, and this reality shapes your every choice, every action, every bite. Historians still debate the precise caloric intake and nutritional value of a typical medieval peasant's diet. While it was certainly monotonous and often insufficient, it was designed for survival and labor. Was it enough to sustain the incredibly demanding physical work you performed? Daily, often, barely. But it kept you alive, fueling the engine of feudal society one meager meal at a time. Your existence is a testament to the power of human adaptation, learning to thrive or at least survive on the bare minimum. You are a living embodiment of the phrase, waste not, want not, because wanting was simply not an option. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, your thoughts turn towards your home, your humble abode. It's not the kind of place you see in glossy magazines, but it's your shelter, your sanctuary, however rudimentary. Your medieval peasant hut is a testament to basic human ingenuity and the relentless pursuit of warmth and safety. Imagine living in a single room with your entire family where the only privacy you get is the darkness of night. Your home is typically a wattle and daub structure. This means the walls are made from interwoven branches and twigs wattle plastered with a mixture of clay, mud, straw, and sometimes animal dung daub. This creates surprisingly sturdy and insulating walls, though they require constant maintenance, especially after heavy rains. The roof is usually thatched, made from layers of straw or reeds, carefully laid to shed water. While effective thatch is also a fire hazard and a favorite nesting place for rodents and insects, you might joke about your open concept living, but it's less about design trends and more about a lack of choices. The floor of your hut is simply packed earth. It's uneven, often damp, and impossible to keep truly clean. You sweep it regularly with a twig broom, but dust, dirt, and stray bits of straw are constant companions. There are no rugs, no carpets, just the bare ground beneath your feet. In winter, this floor can be incredibly cold, radiating chill up through your body. Inside your hut is a single multi-purpose room. There are no separate bedrooms, no kitchen, no living room. Everything happens in this one space. In the center, or perhaps slightly to one side, is the hearth, a simple fire pit. This fire is the heart of your home. It provides warmth, light, and a place to cook your daily pottage. There's usually a hole in the roof directly above it, a crude smoke hole to allow some of the smoke to escape, but much of it lingers, stinging your eyes and coating everything in a layer of soot. Your lungs are constantly exposed to this smoke, contributing to various respiratory ailments throughout your short life. It's like living in a permanent campfire, but without the s'mores. Furnishings are incredibly sparse. You might have a rough-hewn wooden table, perhaps just a few planks balanced on logs and a couple of stools. Most often, you sit on the floor or on low benches. Storage is minimal. A few wooden chests to hold what few possessions you have, a change of rough-spun clothing. Perhaps a small treasured religious item and any dried food stores. There are no closets, no dressers overflowing with clothes. Every item you own is functional and essential for survival. Your bed is a simple affair, a pile of straw or dried bracken, perhaps covered with a coarse wool blanket. You sleep bundled together with your entire family for warmth, especially during the cold winter nights. Privacy is a foreign concept. Everyone is constantly aware of everyone else's presence. You fall asleep to the sounds of your family breathing, the crackle of the fire, and the occasional scuttling of mice in the thatch. Sleep is less about comfort and more about necessary rest before another day of toil. Animals often share your living space, particularly during the harsh winter months. Chickens might roost in the rafters, a pig might be kept in a corner to keep it warm and safe, and your working animals like oxen might be tethered just outside their body heat, radiating into the hut. This communal living provides warmth and security for your livestock, but it also adds to the odors and hygiene challenges within your home. Imagine waking up to the clucking of chickens right next to your head. That's a typical morning for you. Lighting once the sun sets is minimal. The fire provides some flickering light, but for tasks requiring more visibility, you might use a rush light. A rush soaked in animal fat, which burns quickly and provides little illumination, or perhaps a small sputtering candle if you can afford the tallow. Evenings are largely spent in semi-darkness, prompting early bedtimes. There's no electric light to extend your day, no glowing screens to entertain you. Stories told by the flickering firelight are your primary form of evening entertainment and education. Water is a constant concern. There are no indoor plumbing or taps. You fetch all your water from a communal well or a nearby stream, carrying it in heavy buckets. This water is used for everything: cooking, washing, and drinking. It's often murky and can carry diseases, but you have no other choice. A great example of a common historical truth is that access to clean water was one of the biggest challenges for medieval communities, leading to widespread illness. An interesting detail is that many peasant huts would have a small covered pit outside, serving as a rudimentary privy or latrine, though often waste was simply discarded into nearby ditches. This, of course, contributed to the spread of disease. Your home is more than just a shelter. It's a workshop. In the evenings after returning from the fields, your family engages in various domestic crafts essential for survival. Women spin wool into thread using a drop spindle, a deceptively simple tool that requires immense skill and practice. This thread is then woven into cloth on a basic loom, providing the rough fabric for your clothes. Men might mend tools, sharpen blades, or craft simple wooden implements. Children are taught these skills from a young age, contributing to the household economy as soon as their small hands are capable. The concept of home improvement is utterly foreign. Your hut is functional, designed for utility and basic protection, not comfort or aesthetics. Repairs are made out of necessity, patching a hole in the roof or redaubing a wall after a storm. There's no desire for larger spaces or more elaborate decorations. Survival is the driving force, and your home reflects that stark reality. It's a humble dwelling, but it's your refuge from the harsh outside world. Despite the cramped conditions and constant dirt, your hut is a place of family. It's where children are born, where meals are shared, where stories are told. It's the one place where you can escape the direct gaze of the Lord and the endless demands of the field. It's a space of shared existence where the bonds of family are forged in the crucible of hardship. You might even joke about needing a personal space bubble, but that's a luxury you simply don't possess. Historians still debate the precise dimensions and layouts of typical peasant homes across different regions and time periods. While some general characteristics apply, there was likely significant variation based on local materials, climate, and the specific customs of a manor. However, the overarching theme remains these were small, functional, and often shared spaces, a stark reflection of a life lived close to the land and the limits of available resources. Your home is a constant reminder of your place in the social hierarchy, a simple dwelling for a simple life bound by the earth and the Lord's will. Your life, though seemingly confined to your village and the endless fields, is not without its rules. In fact, it's governed by a complex, often brutal system of laws and customs that emanate from your Lord. You are not a citizen of a nation in the modern sense. You are a subject of your Lord, and His word, backed by His power, is the law that shapes your very existence. Imagine a world where your local landlord also has the power to send you to jail, or worse. That's your reality. The foundation of this system is feudalism, a hierarchical structure where land is exchanged for service and loyalty. Your lord holds his land known as a manor directly from a more powerful noble, who in turn holds it from the king. And you, the peasant, are at the very bottom of this intricate pyramid, bound to the land and obligated to provide labor and services to your lord. You are a serf, and while not a slave, your freedom is severely curtailed. You cannot leave the manor without your lord's permission. You cannot marry outside the manor without his consent, and often a fee and your children inherit your status. It's a bit like a permanent, inescapable contract with really bad terms. Your obligations to the Lord are numerous and unwavering. The most significant is labor service known as week work. This means you are required to work on the Lord's domain, his personal land, for a certain number of days. Each week, typically 2 or 3, sometimes more during peak seasons like harvest. This isn't voluntary, it's a mandatory duty performed before you can even begin to work on your own strips of land. You toil in his fields, tend to his animals, and maintain his buildings, all without pay. This labor is the lifeblood of the Lord's wealth, directly supporting his household and military. Beyond week work, there are additional boon works. Extra labor days demanded by the Lord for specific tasks, such as harvesting his crops, mending his fences, or repairing the manor house. These are often required at the busiest times for your own fields, forcing you to prioritize the Lord's needs over your family's. It's a constant struggle to balance these demands with your own survival. You might find yourself working for the Lord all day, then rushing to your own fields in the fading light, driven by the desperate need to feed your family. You also owe the Lord various payments in kind and fees. As mentioned, you must use his mill to grind your grain, his oven to bake your bread, and his winepress to make your wine, if you're lucky enough to have grapes paying a portion of your produce for the privilege. This is the system of banalities designed to extract maximum profit from your labor. You also pay a portion of your harvest, your chickens, or your eggs as rent for the use of your strips of land. Some manors even had a harriet, where the best beast or chattel of a deceased tenant would revert to the Lord. Imagine working your whole life and then your best cow gets taken by the landlord when you die. Justice on the manor is administered by the Lord or his steward through the manorial court. This isn't a court of abstract legal principles. It's a practical local court that deals with disputes between villagers, minor crimes, and, most importantly, infringements of manorial custom and the Lord's rights. If you fail to perform your labor services, if you let your animals stray onto the Lord's land, or if you poach in his woods, you will be brought before this court. The penalties can range from fines often paid in produce or labor to public humiliation or even corporal punishment for more serious offenses. There's no appeal to a higher court, no concept of innocent until proven guilty in the way we understand it. Justice is swift and often arbitrary, determined by the Lord's will. The Lord's power extends beyond the purely economic. He is also your military protector. In a world without strong central governments or professional police forces, the Lord and his knights are your primary defense against raiders, rival lords, or outlaws. You pay your dues, and in return, he theoretically provides protection. This is a common historical fact. The exchange of land for loyalty and protection was central to feudal society. An interesting detail is that while many peasant customs were unwritten, they were often deeply ingrained and recognized within the manorial court, providing some limited protection against arbitrary rule. The Lord couldn't just make up rules entirely on the fly. There was a body of accepted custom. Your relationship with the Lord is complex. On one hand, he is your oppressor, demanding your labor and exacting taxes. On the other, he is your landlord, your judge, and your protector. You rely on him for stability even as you resent his demands. There's no concept of voting him out or protesting his rule. Your place in society is fixed, and challenging it directly often leads to dire consequences. Rebellions, though rare, did occur, but they were almost always brutally suppressed, serving as stark warnings against defiance. The church also plays a significant role in enforcing the social order. You are required to pay a tithe, a tenth of your produce, to the church. This payment is separate from your obligations to the Lord and is seen as a religious duty. The church, with its moral authority and promise of salvation, reinforces the idea that your position in life is divinely ordained, that challenging the established order is a sin. This dual system of control, secular and spiritual, keeps you firmly in your place. Historians still debate the extent of peasant agency within the feudal system. Were peasants entirely powerless victims, or did they find ways to resist, negotiate, and assert their limited rights? While open rebellion was rare, subtle forms of resistance, like working slowly, feigning illness, or hiding parts of the harvest, were likely common. You might quietly grumble amongst your neighbors, sharing jokes about the Lord's extravagance or the steward's unfairness, but open defiance is a luxury you cannot afford. Your existence under the Lord's law is one of constant subjugation. Your body, your labor, and even your family are in a sense his property. You are tied to the land not by chains, but by a web of legal obligations and economic necessity. Your life is a testament to the power of hierarchy and the enduring struggles of those at the bottom. Yet within this rigid system, you find small ways to assert your humanity, to carve out a life, and to survive. Because in the end, survival is your ultimate act of defiance against a system designed to keep you bound to the soil. In your medieval world, life is fragile, a delicate thread, constantly threatened by unseen forces. While the toil in the fields drains your body, it is disease and pestilence that often deliver the final brutal blow. There are no doctors in white coats, no pharmacies stocked with wonder drugs. Your understanding of illness is rooted in ancient belief, superstition, and a desperate reliance on faith. Imagine a world where a common cold could kill your neighbor, and you just had to watch. From the moment you are born, you are susceptible. Childbirth itself is perilous for both mother and child, a leading cause of death. If you survive infancy, you face a constant barrage of ailments. Common diseases like dysentery, measles, and influenza sweep through villages with terrifying speed. There's no concept of germs. Instead, illnesses are often attributed to bad air, miasma theory, imbalance of humors, divine punishment, or even witchcraft. This lack of understanding means that attempts at treatment are often ineffective and sometimes even harmful. You might joke about Dr. Google, but your medical advice comes from old wives' tales and hopeful prayers. Your body, constantly undernourished and overworked, is fertile ground for infection. Minor cuts and scrapes, which we would treat with a simple antiseptic, can quickly fester and turn into life-threatening infections, leading to gangrene or blood poisoning. Without antibiotics, even a seemingly innocuous injury can lead to a slow, agonizing death. Dental hygiene is non-existent, leading to rampant tooth decay, abscesses, and constant pain. You learn to endure pain, for it is a constant companion. The most terrifying specter is, of course, plague. The Black Death in the mid-14th century decimated Europe, wiping out an estimated 30 to 50% of the population. When the plague arrives, it brings swift, agonizing death. Black swellings buboes appear on the body, followed by fever, vomiting, and delirium. Entire villages can be wiped out, leaving fields untended and homes empty. The sheer scale of the death is unimaginable, leaving deep psychological scars on those who survive. People flee in terror, but often carry the disease with them, spreading it further. It's a true apocalypse where the fabric of society unravels. Beyond the major epidemics, there are constant localized outbreaks. Contaminated water sources, poor sanitation, and the close proximity of humans and animals create ideal breeding grounds for disease. Lice, fleas, and rats are common, acting as vectors for various illnesses. Your hut, while providing shelter, offers little protection against these microscopic enemies. You're living in a biological war zone, largely unaware of the enemy. When illness strikes, your options are extremely limited. There are no trained medical professionals as we understand them. You rely on folk remedies, herbal concoctions passed down through generations, often based on trial and error. Some herbs might have genuine medicinal properties, offering minor relief for symptoms, but none can cure serious infections or widespread diseases. You might apply poultices, drink bitter teas, or engage in superstitious rituals, hoping to appease whatever unseen forces are causing the affliction. The church plays a central role in times of sickness. When earthly remedies fail, people turn to divine intervention. Prayers, pilgrimages to holy sites, and vows to saints are common practices. You might believe that illness is a test of faith or a punishment for sin, leading to intense periods of introspection and repentance. The local priest might offer last rites, providing spiritual comfort in the face of inevitable death. This is a common historical truth. The church was the primary source of comfort and guidance during times of crisis, including widespread disease. An interesting detail is that medieval hospitals, often run by monasteries, focused more on providing care and comfort for the sick and dying, rather than on active medical treatment, as we understand it today. They were more hospices than modern hospitals. Despite the pervasive threat of disease, life continues. You can't afford to be idle even when unwell, unless you are truly incapacitated. The fields still need tending, the animals still need feeding, and your family still needs to eat. You push through fevers, coughs, and aches, often working until your body gives out. Resilience born of necessity is ingrained in your very being. You learn to live with a constant sense of vulnerability, accepting that death is always just around the corner. The constant presence of death shapes your worldview. You are familiar with it from a young age, witnessing family members, friends, and neighbors succumb to illness, accident, or starvation. There's a stoic acceptance of mortality, a deep understanding of the fleeting nature of life. This understanding is reflected in your culture, your art, and your religious beliefs. The danse macabre, a popular medieval artistic motif, depicting death leading people from all walks of life in a dance, perfectly encapsulates this pervasive awareness of mortality. You might even crack a morbid joke about how, at least in death, you won't have to weed anymore. Historians still debate the specific impact of various diseases on medieval populations, especially in terms of long-term health and genetic adaptation. Did constant exposure lead to a more robust, albeit smaller, gene pool? The exact interplay of factors remains a complex area of study. What is clear, however, is that your life, though short, is a testament to the sheer strength of the human will to survive in the face of overwhelming adversity. You live on the edge, always with pestilence and prayers as your constant companions, hoping that your faith will carry you through when your body inevitably fails. In a life so thoroughly defined by relentless labor, gnawing hunger, and the constant shadow of disease, one might imagine there's no room for joy. But even for you, the medieval peasant, there are moments, brief, precious, and intensely savored, when the harsh realities of existence momentarily recede and you find a fleeting glimpse of happiness. These moments are like rare wildflowers blooming in a barren field, cherished all the more for their scarcity. You might not have theme parks or Netflix, but you have your own forms of collective exhilaration. The most significant breaks in your relentless toil are the church festivals and holy days. The church, while demanding a tithe, also provides the structure for communal life and offers periods of respite from work. Feast days celebrating saints or major religious events like Christmas, Easter, and Pentecost are times when labor is forbidden and the entire village comes together. These are days of communal worship, yes, but also of genuine celebration. Imagine Christmas without the commercialism, just pure unadulterated joy. On these feast days, the church bells peal, summoning everyone to Mass. Afterwards, the village green, or a designated open space, transforms into a hub of activity. There might be communal feasting, often with the Lord contributing a slaughtered ox or a barrel of ale, a generous gesture that helps to build goodwill and ensure your continued loyalty. For you, this is a rare chance to eat meat in abundance, to drink ale freely, and to enjoy food that isn't just basic sustenance. The air fills with the savory smells of roasting meat and the sweet scent of spiced bread. Beyond food, these festivals are times for entertainment and social interaction. There might be crude forms of theater simple morality plays, performed by traveling players or even villagers themselves, conveying religious lessons or satirical commentaries on daily life. Storytellers enthrall audiences with tales of saints, heroes, and mythical beasts. Musicians play simple instruments, flutes, pipes, drums, and villagers sing and dance. An interesting detail is that many traditional folk, dances and songs still performed today, have their roots in medieval peasant festivities, preserving echoes of their brief moments of joy. You might find yourself caught up in a lively circle dance, forgetting your aching back for a few precious moments. Sports and games, though often informal, are also part of the festivities. Men might engage in wrestling or cudgel fighting, while children play simple games with sticks and stones. Archery contests are common, showcasing practical skills that also serve as military training. These are opportunities for friendly competition to blow off steam and to prove your physical prowess. It's like your village's version of the Olympics, but with far fewer rules and no official uniforms. Market days are another important reprieve, though they are primarily for commerce. If your village is large enough, or if you live near a town, you might travel to a weekly or bi-weekly market. This is a chance to sell any surplus produce you might have a rare occurrence, or to buy goods you cannot produce yourself like salt tools or finer cloth. But beyond the transactions, market days are vital social events. You meet people from other villages, exchange news and gossip, and experience a brief glimpse of a world beyond your manor. The bustling crowds, the cries of vendors, the array of unfamiliar goods. It's a sensory overload, a lively contrast to the quiet monotony of your daily life. It's the closest you get to a shopping mall, really, and probably just as overwhelming. Weddings, births, and christenings are deeply significant family and communal events. While tinged with the anxieties of survival, these are moments of genuine celebration and reaffirmation of life. A wedding brings two families together, strengthening social bonds within the village. A new birth, though a precarious beginning, is a cause for hope and joy, signifying the continuation of the family line and the future of the community. These are private moments made public, celebrated with what little resources you have, reinforcing the tight-knit nature of your village. Even during your relentless work in the fields, there are small, unscripted moments of human connection that bring a flicker of light. Shared laughter over a clumsy mistake, a moment of commiseration with a neighbor about the poor harvest. The simple act of sharing a meager meal with your fellow laborers. These aren't grand festivities, but quiet affirmations of camaraderie and shared humanity. You rely on your neighbors for help and support, and these small interactions build the social fabric of your community. A common historical truth is that despite the hardships, medieval peasant communities were incredibly resilient and often self-sufficient, finding joy in simple pleasures. An obscure fact that highlights this is the prevalence of storytelling and oral traditions. Evenings spent by the fire were filled with tales, legends, fables, and personal anecdotes that entertained, educated, and preserved the collective memory of the village. This was your television, your radio, your internet all rolled into one, fostering a strong sense of cultural identity. Historians still debate the true psychological impact of this harsh existence. Did these brief moments of joy truly outweigh the constant struggle, or were they merely temporary distractions? While it's impossible to know the exact emotional landscape of a medieval peasant, it's clear that humanity's capacity for finding light in darkness is profound. These brief reprieves, these shared smiles, these communal celebrations are what help you to endure, to gather strength for the arduous days ahead. They remind you that even in a world of misery, there is still something worth living for. You've lived a life of unwavering labor, of hunger, and of quiet endurance, your existence bound to the rhythms of the earth and the will of your Lord. But even the most patient and stoic spirit can be pushed to its breaking point. There comes a time for some when the weight of injustice, the crushing burden of demands, or the gnawing certainty of starvation forces a terrible choice: rebellion or resignation. This isn't a choice for the faint of heart. It's a decision that can lead to freedom or to a brutal, agonizing end. Imagine living under so much pressure that the only two options you see are fighting for your life or giving up entirely. For the vast majority of your life, resignation is the default. It's the path of least resistance, the survival strategy ingrained in generations of your ancestors. You accept your lot, work the land, pay your dues, and pray for a better afterlife. This is not out of weakness, but out of a profound understanding of the power dynamics. The Lord has armed knights, fortified castles, and the backing of a system that views your rebellion as an assault on divine order. To rise up is to risk everything: your life, your family's lives, and the very existence of your village. The odds are overwhelmingly stacked against you. Yet despite the formidable risks, history is punctuated by moments when the unbearable became well unbearable. These are the sparks of peasant revolts, often triggered by a confluence of factors: increased taxes, stricter labor services, particularly bad harvests leading to widespread famine, or a perceived injustice from a cruel lord or his oppressive bailiff. These aren't organized revolutions in the modern sense. They are often desperate, spontaneous uprisings born of sheer desperation. It's like a pressure cooker finally exploding. One of the most common historical facts is that peasant revolts, while often widespread, rarely succeeded in fundamentally altering the feudal system in the long term. They were almost always brutally suppressed. An interesting detail is that many of these revolts were sparked not by a desire to overthrow the entire system, but by a plea for the restoration of ancient customs or perceived traditional rights that the Lord was violating. You weren't necessarily seeking a new world order. You just wanted your Lord to stop being so awful and stick to the old rules. Imagine the tension building in your village. Whispers spread from hut to hut after a particularly harsh decree from the Lord, perhaps demanding an extra week of labor or seizing an unusually large portion of your dwindling grain. The elders recount stories of past famines, of cruel lords, and of the quiet suffering that always followed. Fear is a palpable thing, but so is a growing, simmering rage. You look at your gaunt children, your exhausted wife, and you feel the tightening knot of despair. The decision to rebel isn't made lightly. It's often a communal one, forged in heated discussions around clandestine fires at night. Someone, perhaps a charismatic individual with a gift for impassioned speeches, will voice the unspeakable "enough." Others, initially hesitant, will nod their eyes, reflecting the same desperate hope. You might arm yourselves with whatever you have. Pitchforks, scythes, ironically, the tools of your oppression become the tools of your defiance, axes, or even just clubs. It's a truly makeshift army fueled by desperation rather than military training. The immediate targets are usually the symbols of the Lord's power: the manor house, the mill, the Lord's granary where your stolen grain is stored. There's a chaotic energy as you and your fellow villagers march, a mixture of exhilaration and terror. You might burn records of your debts, loot the Lord's stores for food, and perhaps even inflict violence on the Lord's representatives, the bailiff, or the reeve, who have been the immediate instruments of your oppression. It's a fleeting moment of power, a brief taste of what it might feel like to be free. You're throwing off the yoke, even if just for a day. However, the euphoria is short-lived. News of your rebellion travels, and the Lord or his overlord will swiftly mobilize his forces. Knights heavily armed and well-trained are dispatched to crush the uprising. They are professional warriors facing off against an ill-equipped, disorganized peasant mob. The outcome is almost always predetermined. The brutal suppression that follows is a chilling lesson. Villages are burned. Rebels are executed, often publicly, as a deterrent. Those who survive are forced back into even harsher servitude, the Lord's grip tightened in the aftermath. You might joke about power in numbers, but those numbers don't always translate to victory against swords and armor. The consequences of rebellion, even a failed one, can be profound. It can lead to generations of intensified repression, making life even more miserable for those who remain. Yet, paradoxically, these revolts sometimes very rarely lead to subtle long-term changes. The fear of future uprisings might prompt lords to ease some of the more egregious demands or to codify customs to prevent future disputes. Historians still debate whether peasant revolts were ultimately feudal acts of desperation, or if they contributed, however marginally, to the gradual decline of serfdom in parts of Europe. Perhaps the lords, after seeing the pitchforks, realized that a slightly less miserable peasant was a more productive and less rebellious peasant. For you, witnessing or participating in such an event is a defining moment. It forces you to confront the limits of your agency, the brutal realities of power, and the terrifying cost of defiance. If you survive, you carry the scars, both physical and psychological, for the rest of your life. The brief flicker of hope might be extinguished, replaced by a deeper, more resigned understanding of your place in the world. Or perhaps a tiny ember of defiance continues to smolder, a silent knowledge that even a worm will turn. This choice between enduring the misery and risking everything for a fleeting moment of freedom is the ultimate test of your spirit. Your life, though, lived in the confined world of your medieval manor, is not entirely static. While you toil day in and day out, largely unseen by the grand chroniclers of history, the seeds of change are subtly, inexorably being sown around you. Your struggles, your endurance, and even your moments of fleeting defiance all contribute to a slow, almost imperceptible shift in the fabric of society. You are a small cog in a massive machine, but even small cogs can eventually wear down the gears. It's like watching a glacier move. You don't see it day to day, but over centuries it carves mountains. One of the most significant forces driving this change, paradoxically, is the very misery you endure, the sheer economic pressure on the feudal system. The lord needs your labor, but he also needs coin to buy luxury goods to pay for his wars and to maintain his increasingly elaborate lifestyle. As trade routes slowly expand and market economies begin to develop, the demand for goods and money increases. This puts pressure on the traditional system of labor service. Sometimes lords find it more efficient to commute your labor services into money rents, allowing you to pay for your land in coin rather than working his domain. This is a crucial step towards your limited freedom, transforming you from a serf into a tenant farmer. The devastating impact of the Black Death in the mid-14th century, while horrific in its immediate effects, paradoxically created a seismic shift in your world. With a massive reduction in population, there was suddenly a severe labor shortage. This meant that for the first time in centuries, your labor became incredibly valuable. Lords desperate for workers to till their fields were forced to offer better terms, higher wages, or more favorable leases to attract and retain peasants. This is a stark example of supply and demand playing out on the most tragic stage. You might even hear jokes about how the plague was the best thing to happen to the peasant class in a dark, ironic sort of way. This newfound, albeit limited bargaining power allows some peasants to negotiate for lower rents, fewer labor services, or even the right to move more freely. While serfdom doesn't disappear overnight, the foundations begin to crack. In some regions, peasants are able to buy their freedom or gain the right to own their land, outright becoming freeholders. This is a slow, piecemeal process, varying greatly from manor to manor and region to region, but the overall trend is undeniable. The growth of towns and cities also offers a potential, albeit dangerous, escape from the drudgery of rural life. Towns are centers of trade craftsmanship and a different kind of freedom. If you can manage to escape your manor and live in a town for a year and a day without being reclaimed by your lord, you often gain your freedom. This concept, known as town air makes free, creates a magnet for ambitious or desperate peasants seeking a new life. Life in towns is not easy, often cramped, unsanitary, and prone to disease. But it offers economic opportunities and a degree of personal liberty unimaginable in the countryside. Imagine the rumors of city life reaching your isolated village, tales of wealth and freedom sparking a quiet yearning. Technological advancements, though slow, also have an impact on your life. Innovations like the heavy plow, the horse collar, which allowed horses to pull plows more efficiently than oxen, and improvements in crop rotation like the three-field system, gradually increase agricultural productivity. While these innovations might seem minor, they slowly reduce the sheer brute force required for farming and can lead to more consistent harvests, subtly easing the pressure of famine. This is a common historical truth. Seemingly small agricultural innovations had massive cumulative effects over centuries. An interesting detail is that the adoption of these technologies was often slow and uneven, sometimes resisted by conservative peasant communities or limited by the cost of new equipment. It wasn't always a smooth, linear progression. The role of the church, while still powerful, also experiences shifts. The growth of monastic orders and universities, the increasing literacy among some segments of society, though not for you and theological debates, contribute to a more complex intellectual landscape. While the church continues to emphasize order and hierarchy, dissenting voices and reform movements also emerge, albeit slowly. You might not understand the theological nuances, but you feel the subtle shifts in authority and influence. Historians still debate the extent to which these long-term trends were driven by economic forces versus social and political change. Was it the market pushing for freedom or the accumulated pressure of peasant resistance and a gradual erosion of traditional power structures? It's likely a complex interplay of all these factors. But for you, the individual peasant, the change is mostly felt in small personal ways. A slightly lighter burden of labor service, a little more control over your own produce, perhaps the ability to earn a few coins. Your individual life might be short and hard, a mere blip in the grand tapestry of history, but the combined effort, struggles, and quiet endurance of countless peasants like you contribute to the eventual weakening of the feudal system. Each furrow you plow, each grain you sow, each tax you pay, each time you survive a famine or a plague, you are laying the groundwork, however unwittingly, for a different future. You are part of a massive, slow-moving force that will eventually transform the agricultural landscape and eventually society itself. Your misery, in a strange way, becomes a catalyst for the gradual evolution of human freedom. You are the silent architects of change, building a future you will never fully experience. Your hands, once small and soft, are now gnarled and calloused, a testament to decades of unyielding labor. Your back is permanently stooped, your vision perhaps clouded, and your body a roadmap of aches and pains. You have lived a life dictated by the sun and the soil, a life of relentless toil and simple endurance. And now, as the shadows lengthen and the chill of your final winter approaches, you reflect not on grand achievements, for there were none, but on the quiet, profound legacy etched into the very earth you inhabited. You haven't built empires or led armies, but your impact is undeniable. You have been a silent, indispensable force. Every single loaf of bread eaten by the Lord, every garment worn by the nobility, every stone laid in a cathedral, all were ultimately supported by your aching back and tireless hands. You and countless peasants like you were the bedrock of medieval society, the engine that powered a world built on agriculture. Without your ceaseless labor, the knights would have had no food, the monks no tithes, and the lords no wealth. This is a crucial historical truth. The entire feudal system rested squarely on the shoulders of the peasantry. Imagine a skyscraper where the foundation is made of tired, hungry people. That's you. Your legacy isn't written in books or carved in stone monuments. It's woven into the very fabric of the landscape. The fields you plowed, the hedges you maintained, the paths you trod, these remained shaping the countryside for centuries. The knowledge of the land, of farming techniques, of animal husbandry, passed down through generations, was your intellectual inheritance, painstakingly preserved and refined through practical experience. You were the repository of vital agricultural wisdom. You endured famines that decimated populations, plagues that swept through villages like a scythe, and the constant grinding poverty that was your birthright. Yet you persisted. You married, you raised children. You taught them the skills of survival, ensuring the continuation of your family line and your community. Your resilience is staggering, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, to cling to life against overwhelming odds. You might have cracked a joke or two about being unbreakable, but in your context, it's genuinely true. The very concept of serfdom, which bound you to the land, slowly withered over centuries, partly because of the economic and social pressures you indirectly created. Your passive and active resistance, the labor shortages after the Black Death, and the gradual shift towards a money economy all chipped away at the foundations of your bondage. You may not have seen yourself as an agent of change, but your collective existence and perseverance were instrumental in the gradual, agonizingly slow transition from a feudal world to one with increasing personal freedoms. Your innovations, though often small and incremental, cumulatively improved agricultural output. The way you rotated crops, adapted tools, and managed livestock evolved over time, laying the groundwork for more productive farming in later centuries. You were practical experimenters driven by necessity, observing what worked and what didn't in the unforgiving laboratory of the natural world. The stories you told by the fire, the songs you sang while working in the fields, the customs and traditions you upheld, these form the intangible cultural legacy that survived long after your physical body returned to the earth. They were the glue that held your communities together, providing meaning, entertainment, and a sense of identity in a world that offered little else. An interesting detail is that many regional dialects and folk tales in modern Europe can be traced back to the distinct localized cultures of medieval peasant communities. Your life, though seemingly insignificant from a grand historical perspective, was rich in its own way. Rich in sensory experience. The smell of damp earth, the taste of coarse bread, the feel of rough wool. Rich in human connection. The bonds of family, the camaraderie of your fellow villagers. And rich in purpose. The daily struggle for survival, the profound responsibility of feeding your family. Historians still debate the extent to which the personal experiences of individual peasants shaped broader historical narratives versus simply being products of them. Were you merely acted upon, or did your collective resilience and quiet actions subtly steer the course of history? Perhaps it's a bit of both, a dance between individual will and societal forces. As you close your eyes for the last time, you are not a king, a knight, or a scholar. You are a peasant. Your name will not be remembered, your deeds not recorded in scrolls. But your essence, your grit, your silent strength live on. It lives in the fields that still bear the marks of ancient furrows, in the quiet wisdom of the soil, and in the enduring human capacity to find dignity and meaning in the most challenging of lives. Your life was a testament to survival, and in that there is a profound, unforgettable legacy